a wide slab of pale stone veined with shimmering silver, carved centuries ago to honor the moon goddess. Here, promises were made. Here, souls found their other halves. And here, she had met Malrek Greystone, the one her heart claimed as her own. "Valeth," came a voice behind her, low and steady, a sound that always brought warmth to her chest. She turned and saw him, Malrek. His frame was tall and broad-shouldered, his presence commanding, yet softened by the boyish light in his storm-gray eyes. Even in his simple tunic and cloak, he seemed marked by strength, the kind that came not just from the body, but from the heart. When he looked at her, it was as though he saw no one else in the world. "You're late," she teased gently, though her lips curved in a smile. Malrek smirked, striding closer until he stood beside her at the altar. "You know me. If I don't make you wait at least a little, you'd think I was losing interest." Her laughter spilled into the night, soft and melodic. "Losing interest? Hardly. If you ever did, Malrek Greystone, I would think the stars had abandoned the sky." He chuckled, but as their eyes met, both fell quiet, the weight of the moment pressing on them. The full moon loomed only days away. Soon they would stand before the pack to be bound as one in the sacred moon bond, their spirits entwined forever under the moon goddess's blessing. But until then, there was only their promise. Malrek reached for her hand, his calloused fingers warm against her own. "Valeth," he spoke of this before, "the vows we'll make, the joining that waits for us." His voice grew softer, almost reverent. "But I want to speak it once more, here, where the moon can hear it." She swallowed, her heartbeat thrumming in her chest. "Yes, speak it." He drew in a breath, his thumb brushing lightly across her knuckles. "No matter what comes between now and the full moon, no matter what lies others weave, no matter what shadows creep into our path, I vow myself to you. I will not cross the boundary of our bond until the moon blesses it. My lips will not wander, nor my hands, nor my heart. I am yours, Valeth Orwyn, only yours." Her eyes burned with sudden emotion, and tears threatened to spill, though she held them back. She raised her free hand and pressed it to his chest, feeling the steady drum of his heartbeat beneath. "And I vow the same," she whispered. "No touch, no kiss, no intimacy until the moon seals us together. Not because I do not want it, but because I want it too much. I want it whole, sacred, eternal. You are my only one, Malrek Greystone. My laughter, my soul, my other half." For a moment silence stretched between them, filled only by the night's chorus, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of a wolf, the murmur of wind through the branches. Then Malrek bent his head and pressed his forehead to hers. Their breaths mingled, and though their lips hovered close, they did not kiss. Not yet, not until the moon decreed it. Instead, they laughed, softly, sharing the warmth of a promise kept. In the days that followed, Valeth and Malrek were rarely apart. Their bond was the talk of the Shroudvale pack, whispered with admiration and sometimes envy. Wolves young and old spoke of their laughter echoing through the forest, of the way they spoke as though every tale, no matter how small, was precious when shared together. It was true. Where others sought passion in secrecy or fleeting indulgence, Valeth and Malrek found joy in something far simpler. Stolen hours by the river, where they skipped stones and made foolish bets on whose throw would reach the far bank. Nights curled in the hollow of an oak, trading stories about childhood scrapes and future dreams. Even moments of silence felt rich, as if their hearts spoke in words no tongue could capture. Still, not all eyes watched them kindly. Solara Vane, with her pale hair and sharp smile, lingered too long in Malrek's presence, her gaze smoldering with unspoken hunger. She had long coveted him, and the sight of his devotion to Valeth stung her pride. And Darius Calethorn, golden-haired, broad-shouldered, a warrior whose charm veiled his arrogance, often found excuses to be near Valeth, showering her with compliments laced in jest, his eyes lingering longer than courtesy allowed. Malrek noticed, though he trusted Valeth beyond doubt. Valeth noticed too, though she brushed it aside with laughter. Their vows were iron, unbreakable. What could whispers of desire matter against a bond like theirs? One evening, as the full moon crept closer, the alpha of the pack, Elder Corin, summoned the wolves for a feast. It was tradition before a great joining, a night of revelry meant to bless the betrothed with joy and plenty. The feast was held in the Heartglade, a wide clearing ringed by towering pines where fires crackled and platters of venison, fruit, and honey wine overflowed. Wolves sang old songs, voices rising like a chorus to the stars. Children darted between the legs of warriors, chasing one another in playful snarls. The air was thick with the scent of meat, smoke, and celebration. Vaelith, her cheeks flushed from laughter, clung to Malric's arm if moved among their kin. Elder Corin raised a horn of mead in their honor, blessing their soon-to-be joining with strength and unity. Cheers echoed through the glade, and Malric squeezed her hand, pride shining in his eyes. But as the night deepened, the wine flowed heavier. Goblets were filled and refilled until the line between joy and folly blurred. Wolves stumbled in laughter, voices slurred, and the world itself seemed to sway in rhythm with the drums. Vaelith, unused to such drink, felt warmth seep through her body, softening her steps and clouding her mind. Malric, too, though stronger, was not immune. His laughter grew louder, his vision less sharp. It was then that the shadows crept in. Solara moved close, her perfume sharp in his senses. For a moment, through the haze, he thought it was Vaelith beside him, her hair, her laughter, her touch. His heart stumbled, and when Solara pressed nearer, whispering words he could not quite make out, he did not push her away at once. Across the glade, Vaelith staggered in Darius's arms, her vision blurring. For an instant she thought the warmth that pressed against her was Malric, the familiar steadiness of his chest, the low murmur of his voice. But when Darius's hand slid too far, when his lips hovered too close, her heart lurched with sudden clarity. No, Malric would never. He had promised. They had promised. Her eyes burned, horror sobering her. She shoved him away, stumbling back into the shadows of the trees, her breath ragged. Unbeknownst to her, a pair of eyes followed, sharp and calculating. And across the glade, Malric's haze cleared as Solara's lips brushed too near. He froze. No, this was wrong. Vaelith would never come to me this way, never press so close, never betray their vow of waiting. Their love was laughter, stories, patience. Not this. With a growl of disgust, he tore himself free and vanished into the night. But like Vaelith, he did not escape unseen. By dawn, whispers had begun to stir. Wolves spoke in hushed tones of what they had seen, Vaelith fleeing the trees in disarray, Malric slipping from Solara's grasp. The stories tangled, twisted, growing darker with each telling. And though neither Vaelith nor Malric spoke of what had happened, both carried the secret in silence, shame heavy in their hearts. For though they had fled, though they had resisted, they could not shake the fear that in their drunkenness they had faltered, that somehow, in some small, shameful way, they had already broken the vow they had sworn beneath the moon. And soon enough, the whispers would reach their ears. The seed of doubt had been planted, and the full moon was still to come.
The great feast of Shroudvale was unlike any gathering in the year. It was not simply a celebration of strength, but a reaffirmation of unity before the full moon's binding night. Fires roared in the great stone circle at the heart of the den grounds, sending sparks dancing into the mist-choked skies. Banners stitched with silver-threaded wolves hung between pillars of carved oak, swaying as if whispering their own secrets to the night. The Alpha had spared no effort this year. After all, two of the pack's most promising wolves were set to be joined beneath the full moon, Vaelith Orwyn, sharp-eyed daughter of the hunt, and Malric Greystone, steadfast son of the stone bloodline. The feast was meant to be their honor, their offering before destiny sealed them. But as Vaelith and Malric walked side by side into the glow of fire and song, they felt unease beneath their joy. Neither could name it, yet both sensed it, like a storm cloud waiting past the horizon. The wolves of Shroudvale filled the circle with laughter, the scent of roasted venison, spiced mead, and wild herbs mixing thick in the night air. Malric clapped shoulders with kin, his smile bright but guarded. Vaelith danced with her closest friends, her dark hair catching the firelight, her laugh carrying across the crowd like a silver bell. They belonged here, and yet two sets of eyes followed them with hunger that had little to do with food. Solara Vane, sleek and cunning, circled near the ale casks. Her beauty was famed in Shroudvale, but her heart burned with envy. Malric's steady devotion to Vaelith was a wound she could not bear, and her pride whispered cruel lies. If not for Vaelith, it would be me beneath the moon with him. On the other side, Darius Calethorn leaned lazily against the stone arch, his eyes fixed on Veleth. Strong, arrogant, a wolf with too much ambition to remain content in another shadow. He had admired Veleth from afar, not with the gentle patience of a true mate, but with the smoldering greed of one who believed desire alone should be enough. The feast, he decided, would be his chance. "Drink with me, Maelric," Solara said with a tilt of her cup, slipping close when his guard was low. The mead was honey-sweet, heady with herbs that dulled the senses. Maelric tried to laugh her off politely, but the press of kin, the endless toasts, and the warmth of the fire wore him down. He lifted the cup, thinking little of it. One sip became 3, and soon the night blurred with song and heat. Elsewhere, Veleth was swept into a circle of dancers, Darius pressing a goblet into her hand with a grin. "You honor the pack tonight, Veleth. One drink, just one for courage before the moon binds you." His words were charming, and though she hesitated, the pressure of her friends and the swelling cheer left her no escape. The mead burned hot down her throat. She smiled faintly, unaware of the trap tightening around her. Hours slipped by in laughter and haze. Maelric searched for Veleth more than once, but the crowd pressed thick. Each time he thought he saw her dark hair, she vanished behind a torch or group. Veleth, too, glanced often for Maelric, but the firelight played tricks, and Darius's voice lingered close, always guiding her toward another song, another drink. The lovers moved like stars obscured by clouds, always there but never quite aligned. At last, when the moon rose high above the mists, each was drawn away. Solara brushed Maelric's arm, whispering, "Come, there's quieter air beyond the circle." Her touch was light, her tone careful, but his mead-fogged mind followed before his heart could protest. On the other side, Darius led Veleth toward the shadowed grove near the feast, claiming he wanted to show her something, an old carving, a charm left for luck. The night had turned strange, and the laughter of the feast grew distant. Maelric blinked in the dim torchlight beyond the feast. Solara stood before him, too close, her eyes gleaming like a predator's. She leaned forward, lips parting for invitation. For one dizzy heartbeat, his mind whispered, "Veleth?" The scent was wrong, the smile wrong, but drink clouded his reason. His chest tightened. At the same time, Veleth found herself beneath the ancient oaks, Darius moving close, his hand brushing hers, his words smooth as silk. "You deserve more than waiting, Veleth. Why keep a promise that binds you in chains? You're fire. You should burn now." His eyes darkened with hunger as he leaned toward her. And then, clarity for both. Veleth froze, horror rising in her throat. "No, Maelric would never. He promised me." She pulled away, shaking, heart pounding. "You're not him," she whispered, and with a burst of will, she fled into the night, back toward the feast. Maelric, too, stiffened as Solara's hand brushed his jaw. This was not laughter, not the warmth of shared tales. This was wrong. Veleth would never press me like this. We vowed to wait. The realization slammed through him. He shoved her back and stormed away, shame burning in his chest. But eyes had seen. Shadows lingered near both groves, wolves too curious for their own good. Whispers would spread before dawn. Veleth and Maelric found each other again at the edge of the firelight, both pale, shaken, but neither willing to speak. Around them, the feast roared on. Wolves raised cups, sang songs of honor, unaware of the silent storm brewing in their midst. Maelric raised for his hand, but stopped short. She turned to him, lips parted to ask, but swallowed the words. They stood in silence, each carrying a secret, each believing the other held a stain of betrayal. Above them, the moon seemed colder now, its silver light no longer a promise, but a question. By the time the fires died and dawn crept over Shroudvale, the whispers had begun. "I saw her with Darius. Maelric slipped away with Solara. Strange, isn't it, so close to the joining?" The lovers heard nothing yet, but the storm had been seeded. The feast meant to celebrate their unity had instead cast the first shadow across their bond, and neither yet knew how deeply those shadows would grow.
By dawn, the fires of the feast had smoldered down to embers, their smoke mixing with the morning fog until the air carried both the scent of burnt cedar and damp earth. The celebration that should have bound the pack in unity left, instead, a faint aftertaste of unease. Vaelith awoke in her chamber, the carved stone walls pressing close, her head heavy from the remnants of spiced mead. For a moment she lay still, listening to the quiet rustle of leaves beyond the den. Her heart fluttered, not with the comfort she usually felt after pack gatherings, but with something jagged, a memory. A hand brushing hers beneath the oak, Darius's voice, smooth as oil, whispering temptation. Her body tensed. No, I walked away. I did nothing wrong. Malric will know. He must know. Yet, even as she reassured herself, doubt twisted in her gut. She had seen Malric across the firelight, face pale, steps unsteady. And Solara, hadn't she been with him? The thought made bile rise in her throat. She pressed her palms to her face, whispering into the dark. Moon above, don't let it be true. In another chamber, Malric paced like a caged wolf. His shoulders still carried the weight of Solara's touch, as though the brush of her hand had left a stain no river could wash away. He had pushed her back, had fled, but the shame clung to him. Worse than the shame was the memory of Vaelith's face when he returned, eyes wide, searching, but refusing to meet his gaze. Why didn't I tell her? He muttered aloud, dragging both hands through his hair. Why didn't I say it then and there? Because the pack was watching, because his tongue had felt clumsy with mead, because some part of him feared her anger, feared the breaking of what they were on the edge of sealing. Coward. He spat at himself, slamming a fist against the stone wall. By mid-morning, the pack had already begun its murmurs. Wolves gathered at the training field spoke in hushed tones between sparring bouts. I swear I saw Solara slip away with Malric, and Darius with Vaelith. Just ask Bren. He followed them with his eyes the whole time. Strange timing, isn't it? A moon's night before their binding? What had begun as curiosity curdled quickly into suspicion. Wolves were creatures of loyalty, of pack above self. To betray a promise was no small thing. Even rumors could fracture trust. Solara, of course, fanned the flames. She never claimed outright that anything had passed between her and Malric. She didn't need to. Her silence, her coy smiles, her carefully chosen words when asked, "The night was complicated," were enough to stoke fire where none had truly burned. And Darius, he was bolder. He let slip with a smirk. Vaelith deserves a wolf who won't falter when temptation comes. He never said more, but he didn't need to. The poison was already in the air. Vaelith found Malric near the edge of the forest that afternoon, where the training fields gave way to trees. He stood rigid, arms crossed, staring into the mists as though searching for answers there. She hesitated before stepping forward, her boots crunching softly against the frost-tipped grass. Malric. He turned, and the sight of her, hair loose about her shoulders, eyes shadowed with doubt, stabbed him deep. He wanted to close the distance, to take her hands and swear his truth, but his voice caught. Vaelith. Silence stretched, heavy, until she broke it. I need to ask you something, and I need the truth, Malric. Not the kind you think I want to hear. His chest tightened. Ask. Were you with Solara? The words trembled, though her tone tried to stay sharp. I saw you leave. Others saw too. Malric's throat constricted. He could still feel the brush of Solara's lips. Unasked for, unwanted, but real. His shame twisted with fear. If I tell her, she'll think I faltered. She'll think I betrayed her. He swallowed hard. She followed me. That's all. I left her there. Vaelith's eyes searched his face, desperate for certainty. Nothing else. Not even... She stopped herself, shaking her head. Because I saw Darius too. He tried. Her voice broke. Malric, I walked away. I swear it. His hands itched to hold her, but pride, wounded and afraid, whispered cruelly, "And how far did it go before you walked away?" The slap of her palm against his cheek rang sharp in the stillness. Tears welled in her eyes, but they burned with fury. "How dare you?" she hissed. "You know me better than that." She spun on her heel, storming back toward the den, leaving Malric alone with his regret. Later that night, Solara and Darius found each other at the river's edge, where the mist rose thickest. Their alliance was born not of love, but of shared hunger for what they could not have. "She doubts him already," Solara murmured, tossing a pebble into the black water. "I saw her storm past me, eyes red. It won't take much more to shatter them." Darius smirked, arms folded. "Good. Let her see that Malric is not the steadfast hero she clings to, and when she breaks from him," his voice lowered, dark with desire, "she will need someone strong to fall into." Solara turned, eyes glinting. "And Malric will need comfort as well. Perhaps then he'll see what he's wasted." They clasped hands, not in affection, but in a pact of mutual ruin. Alone in her chamber, Baelith pressed her forehead to the cold stone window, staring at the mist-choked forest. The wolves' whispers reached her even here. She could almost hear them echoing off the walls. "They saw you with Darius. She lingered too long in the grove. Perhaps she was never meant for Malric." Her hands shook as she gripped the sill. "Why do I care what they think? Malric knows me. He should know me." But he hadn't. His eyes had flickered with doubt, his words sharp, and that wound cut deeper than the whispers. "Moon, above, why test us so?" Malric could not sleep. He walked the forest paths until his boots were caked in mud and his cloak heavy with dew. His heart ached with every step. He replayed the moment over and over, the slap, her fury, her tears. "She walked away," he muttered to himself. "She told me, and I doubted her. Fool, fool." But another voice in his head, darker, whispered, "And yet you let Solara touch you. Can you swear before the moon that you are innocent?" He sank to his knees, gripping the damp earth in both fists. "I will make it right. I have to." Yet the mist carried only silence in reply. Days passed, but the wound between them did not heal. Baelith avoided his gaze in the training fields. Malric hesitated each time he sought her out, fear clamping down on his throat. The pack, ever watchful, began to take sides. Some muttered that Baelith's fire was wasted on him, that her strength deserved a bolder mate. Others swore Malric was blameless, that Solara's schemes had trapped him unfairly. And through it all, Solara and Darius smiled. The full moon loomed closer. The night of binding that should have been filled with joy now carried the weight of suspicion, heartbreak, and pride. And the seeds of doubt, once planted, had begun to root.
The night of the full moon hung heavy over Shroudvale like a great silver eye, watching, waiting. Clouds drifted lazily across the sky, but none dared to linger long enough to conceal the orb's harsh brilliance. For the wolves of Shroudvale, this night was sacred. The night the moonstone altar awakened to bind two souls into one eternal bond. The clearing stretched wide, ringed with towering pines. Their branches arced high above, forming a cathedral of shadow and light. Torches had been planted in a great circle around the altar, their flames crackling with restless hunger. The smell of resinous pine and burning pitch mingled with the colder scent of stone and night air. Every wolf of the pack was present, some in their human skins, some already in fur, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They formed a silent congregation, their breaths a single, collective rhythm. At the heart of it all stood the moonstone altar. Carved from a single slab of pale rock, veined with silver, its surface shimmered faintly with a light of its own. Etchings of runes older than memory crawled along its sides, pulsing in rhythm with the beat of the moon above. Baelith Orwyn stood before it, her long raven-dark hair spilling across her shoulders, her pale dress whispering against the ground. She should have felt radiant. Tonight was to be the culmination of her bond with Malric Greystone. yet her chest was a hollow drum, echoing with fear. Her eyes flicked across the faces of her packmates, the glow of suspicion lingering in too many of them. They whisper still, even here, even tonight. They think I betrayed him. They think my heart belongs to another. Her hands trembled, so she clasped them tightly at her waist to hide it. She lifted her chin, reminding herself she was daughter of Orwyn blood, sworn to walk with dignity, no matter how deep the wound inside. Across the altar, Malric approached. His figure was striking. Broad-shouldered, golden-haired, a warrior cut from stone. His every step was measured, but not with joy. His eyes, once warm honey when they looked upon her, had grown clouded, as if storms churned perpetually behind them. He halted beside her, and for a moment the world was still. The torchlight caught on his jaw, on the rigid line of his shoulders. He did not reach for her hand, not as he once would have. Inside Malric, a war raged. She is mine. She has always been mine. I have felt her heartbeat in the rhythm of my own, her soul brushing against mine in dreams. And yet, the whispers coil like snakes. The memory of Darius Calethorn boasting of her company gnaws at me. Could it be true? Could she have turned from me? He swallowed, but the doubt remained, coiled like a splinter he could not dig free. The Alpha stepped forward, tall, his hair streaked with silver, his eyes bright as ice. He lifted his hand, and silence rippled outward. Even the torches seemed to lower their crackling in reverence. Tonight, the Alpha thundered. Vaelith Orwyn, Malric Greystone, you step forward not as two, but as halves awaiting union. Speak your vows, and let the moon judge your truth. The pack's low hum began, a chant deep in the chest, resonating like the heartbeat of the earth itself. The moonstone responded, its glow brightening, casting silver light across their faces. Vaelith pressed her trembling hand to the stone first. The cool surface bit into her palm, and for an instant she thought she felt the thrum of ancient power beneath her skin. She lifted her gaze to Malric, searching his face, begging silently, "See me, believe me." Her voice rose, soft at first, then steadier. "I, Vaelith Orwyn, swear my soul, my breath, and my life to you, Malric Greystone. I vow to walk with you through darkness and light, to fight beside you, to laugh with you until the last star fades. I vow to keep my heart only for you." Her throat burned, tears stung at her eyes, but she did not falter. Every word was a plea, "Trust me. Do not let doubt take me from you." The moonstone flared brighter, responding to her vow, and murmurs stirred in the pack. Some faces softened, others hardened. Now it was Malric's turn. He placed his hand on the stone, his palm covering hers. Heat leapt between them, that familiar bond. Yet it did not settle him. Instead it stirred the unease deeper, like a blade twisting in a wound. He inhaled sharply and spoke. His voice was deep, commanding, but laced with something raw. "I, Malric Greystone, give my strength, my honor, and my spirit to you, Vaelith Orwyn. I vow to guard you with every breath, to hold you in battle and in peace, to share your burdens and your triumphs. I vow that my heart belongs only to you." The words rang strong, but inside he flinched. Why did I hesitate? Why do I remember Solara's touch when I shoved her away? Why do I wonder even now if Vaelith's laughter was meant for me or for another? The altar shuddered beneath their joined hands. The silver glow cracked, veins of shadow spreading through it. Above, the moon itself trembled, a cloud racing to obscure its face. The Alpha roared, "Enough!" His voice shook the clearing. "You bring dishonor to the right. The moonstone rejects your joining." A chorus of gasps spread through the pack. Some clutched at their mates, others lowered their heads in shame. The altar's glow guttered, dimming until only faint embers of light remained. Then, darkness. The bond had failed. A wail tore from Vela's throat, raw and aching. She stumbled back, tears streaking her cheeks. Her wolf howled inside her chest, a cry of loss that echoed in her soul. "You promised me, Malric. You promised you would never doubt me." Malric's fists clenched, his own wolf snarling inside him with grief. His voice broke, low, jagged. "And you promised me your heart was mine alone. But how do I hold faith when shadows whisper louder than truth?" The Alpha's gaze was iron. "The moon has spoken. You are not bound. You are broken." Shame rippled through the pack. Wolves averted their gazes, unwilling to meet the eyes of the two who had failed before the altar. A broken bond was no small wound. It was an omen, a curse. Vela's heart shattered. She could not bear the stares, the whispers. She turned and fled into the forest, her wolf surging beneath her skin, but she forced it down, refusing to reveal her pain and fur. Malric remained rooted, as if his legs were stone. His chest heaved, his eyes locked on the empty space where she had stood. His wolf howled within him, yearning for her, clawing to chase her, but his pride and pain chained him to the spot. The torches crackled. The pack began to murmur, and above them the moon hung cold and merciless, its light veiled as though it too had turned its face away. The breaking moon had come, and nothing would ever be the same.
The days after the failed moon bond were heavy, like a storm that refused to break. Velith wandered the edges of the Shroudvale forest, the mist clinging to her clothes as though it too sought answers she could not give. The failed ritual replayed endlessly in her mind. The moment the moonstone dimmed instead of blazing, the whispers of shame that rose like knives in the crowd. Malric's face frozen in equal horror and despair. The bond that was supposed to seal them had instead cracked wide open, spilling doubt into every corner of their souls. They still saw each other every day. Shroudvale was not so large that one could hide forever, and yet their meetings had become stiff, brittle things, passing looks across training fields, clipped words shared at hunting parties, a silence thick enough to suffocate them both. Velith wanted to scream at him, say it wasn't true, tell me you weren't with her that night. But every time her mouth opened, pride and fear wove shackles around her tongue. And Malric, he burned to gather her into his arms to say, "I never betrayed you. I ran the moment I knew it wasn't you." But then he remembered the whispers, the shadow of her leaving the feast tent with another man, and the wound in his chest tore open anew. They circled each other like wounded wolves, both bleeding, both too proud to admit how much they longed to heal. On the third dawn after the failed ritual, the Alpha's call echoed across the valley. "Pack of Shroudvale," boomed Alpha Corin, his voice carrying from the high stone ledge. "The moon has rejected what should have been our strongest bond. This shame is not theirs alone. It is ours. We cannot walk into the next season divided, nor can we allow whispers to poison our unity. A trial must be held." A murmur rippled through the gathered wolves. A trial was no light thing. It was the moon's way of demanding truth when lies or secrets threatened the pack's survival. Malric's jaw tightened. Beside him, Velith's breath caught, and though her eyes flickered toward him, neither dared meet the other's gaze. Karan's eyes swept the crowd, hard as stone. "At moonrise tomorrow, Velith Orwin and Malric Greystone will stand before the trial of the moon. Their hearts will be weighed, their words will be heard, and we shall see whether trust can be mended or if the bond must be broken forever." That night, Velith could not sleep. She paced her chamber, her hands trembling. The trial of the moon is not just words, it lays bare the spirit. If I stand before them and say nothing, they will think I am guilty. But if I tell them what happened, if I speak of Darius, of how close I came before fleeing, will Malric ever forgive me? Her thoughts spiraled, tormenting her with images of Solara pressing herself against Malric, of his laughter mixed with hers. She pressed her fists to her eyes until stars danced. Why, Moon? Why did you let this happen to us? Across the valley, Malric was no less restless. He sat by the fire pit outside his dwelling, staring into the coals. I could tell them the truth, that I was tricked, that I left the moment I realized it wasn't her. But they saw me. They saw her hands on me. Would they believe anything I say? And worse, the thought that Valeth had let Darius touch her burned through him like acid. If I confess, will she confess too? Or will I be the only one who looks a fool, baring my heart while she hides hers? The fire spat sparks. He clenched his fists. Damn the moon and its silence. If only she'd just tell me. But she did not, and he did not. And so the night stretched long and bitter between them. The following evening, the pack gathered in the hollow beneath the moonstone altar. Torches lined the circle, their flames snapping against the mist. The Alpha stood at the head, flanked by the Council of Elders. Valeth and Malric were called forward, each stepping into the center of the ring. Their shadows flickered across the stone as the pack pressed close, eager for spectacle, hungry for truth. Alpha Corin raised his staff, etched with silver runes that shimmered faintly. The moon demands clarity. You two stand accused not of crime, but of betrayal, of love, of trust, of the vow that binds our kind. Speak now, for the pack watches. Speak true, for the moon listens. The silence that followed was crushing. It was Valeth who broke first. Her voice cracked. She swallowed, forcing her chin up. That night, after the feast, I drank too much. My head was clouded, my steps unsteady. I thought I followed Malric, but it was not him. Whispers surged through the crowd. Some gasped, some smirked knowingly. I realized before it was too late. I remembered our vow. I fled. I did not betray him, not truly. But her eyes darted, searching the crowd. Someone saw me, and since then, the whispers have spread. Her throat tightened. She could not bring herself to name Darius. Not here, not now. Malric's eyes burned into her, sharp and wounded. His thoughts twisted. She admits she was with someone else, but she will not say who. Why hide it, unless it meant something? Now the Alpha's gaze shifted to him. And you, Malric Greystone, what truth do you carry? Malric's jaw worked. His heart thundered in his chest. For a moment he almost told them everything. That Solara had cornered him, that he had believed her Valeth in his haze, and that he fled the instant he realized the wrongness. But when his eyes met Valeth's, and he saw the fear in them, the hesitation, something inside him faltered. He straightened, his voice cold. I too was seen with another that night, but I did not choose it. It was deception, a trick of drink and shadows. I did not betray her, not in spirit. The words hung, half-truths and omissions heavy in the air. The murmurs grew louder. Some shook their heads, muttering about weakness. Others whispered that perhaps the moon had judged rightly in breaking their bond. An elder stepped forward, his voice gravelly. You speak of shadows, of mistakes, of almosts, but the moon demands not half-truths, but all. Without full confession, how can we trust you? How can you trust each other? Valeth's hands trembled at her sides. She wanted to cry out, "It was Darius, he tricked me," but fear clamped her throat shut. Malric's fists clenched. He wanted to roar, "It was Solara, I never touched her willingly." But pride held him silent, and so the silence became their answer. At last, Alpha Corin lifted his staff again. His eyes were grim. The moon has heard. The pack has heard. What is clear is this: you no longer trust each other. Until that trust is mended, no bond can hold you.
No vow can stand unbroken. The moon bond shall remain shattered. A heavy silence fell. Your trial is not ended. Your lives are not forfeit. But know this, unless truth and trust are restored, you shall walk separate paths, and the pack will not wait forever. His staff struck the stone with a resounding crack, sealing the decree. The pack broke. Wolves drifted away in murmurs, some casting pitying glances, others smug ones. Valeth stood frozen, her chest tight. He did not defend me. He did not even try. Malric's thoughts burned just as bitterly. She admitted she was with someone, and still she hides the truth from me. They passed each other as strangers in the night, each wounded, too proud, too afraid to bridge the silence. The pack's faith in them wavered. Solara smiled behind her hand. Darius's eyes glinted with satisfaction. And above them all, the moon hung, cold and distant, watching two hearts unravel further with every passing breath.
The days after the failed trial of the moon hung like a shroud over Shroudvale. The once celebrated pair, Valeth Orwyn and Malric Greystone, now stood apart in gatherings, no longer tethered by laughter or the small stolen touches that once spoke volumes more than words. Whispers rippled through the pack like cold winds in winter. The bond had broken, the moon had turned away, and the pair destined to lead them might never again walk as one. Yet while hearts fractured and trust withered, the world outside their borders grew hungrier. It began with rumors, sightings of Ashfang scouts at the northern ridge, wolves who prowled where Shroudvale's patrols once claimed absolute dominion. Then came the attacks, swift, brutal, probing strikes at the edges of their hunting grounds. Shroudvale bled, and its wolves whispered of weakness. Valeth knew those whispers intimately. She heard them in the marketplace, where vendors who once gifted her with fresh herbs and sweetmeats now served her in silence. She saw them in the averted eyes of mothers, who feared she would never guide the pack with a mate at her side. And she felt them when Solara Vane passed her, lingering smile sharp as a blade as though savoring the wound she had carved into her life. Malric bore the same in silence, though his silence was jagged. He sharpened blades in the training grounds until his hands blistered. He fought harder, faster, as though every swing of his weapon might carve through the doubt that shadowed him. But still he felt eyes on him, and in their gaze he saw the same question. Had he betrayed her? Had he betrayed them all? But when the Ashfang came with full teeth, none of that mattered. The alarm rose at dusk, the wolves at the watchtowers howling warnings that sent the camp into frenzy. Torches flared to life as the war horn bellowed. Malric was among the first to the front lines, his blade gleaming in the firelight. The Ashfang poured through the tree line, their eyes like molten coals, their growls rolling like thunder. Valeth stood opposite him across the clearing, bow in hand, her braid whipping in the wind. For the first time in months, her gaze met his, and in that fleeting second, he felt something burn through the haze of mistrust. The bond between them, though fractured, had not died. It hummed like a wounded string, fragile yet alive. "Malric," the Alpha's voice cut through the din. "North flank! Valeth, cover the ridge!" They moved without hesitation, without thought. Their bodies remembered what their hearts refused to speak. They were halves of one whole, sharpened by the moon itself. Arrows flew swift and true from Valeth's bow, each shaft finding its mark in the chests of wolves that lunged through the undergrowth. Malric fought like a storm, his sword an extension of his rage and his grief. Every slash, every strike was precise, deadly, and unyielding. But what unsettled the Ashfang most was not their skill, it was their rhythm. When Malric dropped low to slash an enemy's legs, Valeth's arrow struck the wolf poised to lunge at his exposed flank. When Valeth loosed 2 arrows in quick succession, Malric intercepted the third enemy charging her blind side. They did not speak, they did not need to. Even broken, their souls moved in tandem, the echo of the moon bond pulsing between them. "Still they fight as one," muttered one Shroudvale wolf in awe, even as his blade dripped with enemy blood. And yet, when the last Ashfang fell, when the clearing fell silent save for the ragged pant of survivors, Valeth and Malric turned from one another. The connection lingered only in battle, only in necessity. Outside of that, it was too raw, too dangerous to face. The Alpha called for counsel that night. The elders gathered in the great hall, the air thick with smoke and exhaustion. Valeth and Malric sat apart, shadows stretching between them like a gulf. "They will not stop," the Alpha growled, pounding his fist against the table. "Ashfang smells weakness in us. They will press until we bleed dry." "They came close today," one elder muttered. "Had Valeth and Malric not fought as they did—" "Fate is cruel," another replied sharply. "The moon denied them. To fight as one is instinct only, not bond. We cannot rest our survival on a broken pair." The words seared them both. Malric's jaw tightened. "Broken. That is what I am to them now. A blade with no edge. A wolf without his heart." Valeth's hands clenched under the table. "They think me weak because I would not bear the truth. But how could I, when to speak of that night would ruin us both?" The Alpha's eyes flicked between them, sharp with unspoken questions. "We stand on the edge of ruin. If Shroudvale falls, your shame will not matter. But if you wish to prove yourselves still worthy of this pack, you must take up the trial of fire." A hush fell. The trial of fire was no simple test. It demanded wolves walk side by side through flame, metaphorical and real, and emerge together or not at all. Malric's head snapped up. "You would risk our lives when Ashfang grows stronger each day?" The Alpha's eyes hardened. "It is not your lives I risk, Greystone. It is ours. If you cannot walk the flames as one, then you will never stand as one again. Better we know now than when the war comes full force." Valeth's breath caught. 1,000 thoughts clashed in her mind. Fear, pride, guilt, longing. At last she whispered, "Then so be it. I will walk the fire." Her eyes flickered to Malric. For a heartbeat she prayed he would refuse, that he would cast her aside and free her from this torment. But he only nodded, grim and silent. The trial came at dawn. The pack gathered in a vast clearing where a great ring of flame had been kindled, the fire licking skyward, heat blistering the air. Wolves circled the blaze, murmuring, waiting. Valeth stood at one edge, Malric at the other. Between them stretched the ring, and within it, a path of white-hot coals that led from one side to the other. The trial of fire was simple: to walk the path side by side, enduring the sear of flame, never faltering, never separating. Wolves whose bonds were true emerged marked by the moon's blessing. Those whose bonds were false emerged scarred, or did not emerge at all. "Do you walk as one?" the Alpha intoned, his voice a thunderclap. Malric's eyes found Valeth's across the flames. He saw her fear, her defiance, her unbroken spirit. His heart clenched. "We walk," he said. The crowd hushed. The fire roared. Side by side they stepped into the flames. The heat was instant, merciless. Its seared skin clawed at their lungs. Sparks danced on their clothes. Flames kissed their arms. Valeth gritted her teeth, eyes forward, refusing to falter. "I will not break. Not here, not before them." Malric's instincts screamed to shield her, to take the brunt of the fire upon himself. But he remembered their vow, remembered her strength. He could not shield her, not this time. They had to endure together or not at all. Halfway through, the whispers began, not from the crowd, but from the fire itself. "Betrayer," it hissed to Malric, "you touched another's skin. You let another's lips find you." He staggered, almost faltering, shame lancing his heart. Valeth's voice, low and fierce, cut through the roar. "Eyes forward, Malric. The fire lies." But the flames turned to her then, voices curling like smoke. "You wanted Darius. You fled, but not before the hunger rose in you. You wanted what was not his to give." Her step faltered, pain flashing across her face. Malric reached for her hand, instinct burning brighter than the flames. Their fingers clasped, and together they forced one step, then another. The whispers screamed, louder, harsher, dragging up every doubt, every wound. Yet they walked. And when they burst through the other side, collapsing to their knees, the pack erupted in howls. The Alpha stepped forward, eyes narrowed, studying the scorched pair. He said, "You did not falter," he said slowly. "Perhaps the moon has not turned from you after all." But Veleth knew. She felt it in her bones and the hollow ache of her heart. The fire had tested them, and though they had endured, the bond was still cracked. They had survived, but not healed. And in the shadows, Solara and Darius watched, smiles sharp, knowing their work was not yet undone.
The moon hung high and pale above the Shroudvale cliffs, casting long shadows that stretched like broken fingers across the valley. The trial of fire was over, the flames quenched, but the echoes of judgment clung to the night like smoke. Veleth walked alone, her boots crunching over gravel as the wind pulled strands of raven-dark hair into her eyes. The air stank of ash and defeat. Inside her chest, her heart beat hollowly, as though some part of her had been burned out in those sacred flames. We survived, she thought, bitterness coating the words. But at what cost? The trial had demanded unity, truth, surrender. She and Malric had stood together against the fire's wrath, their bodies moving in instinctive harmony. And yet, when the flames faded, when the circle closed, she had seen his face in the firelight, distant, closed, a wall of silence that shut her out completely. And now she couldn't run from it. Not tonight. She heard him before she saw him, heavy boots against stone, the scent of him, pine, steel, and smoke, wrapped around her senses, painfully familiar. Malric emerged from the shadow of the cliff, his silver eyes catching the moonlight like molten shards. His broad shoulders were bowed, as though the trial had carved something out of him as well. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched taut between them, thicker than the mist curling in from the woods. Finally, Malric broke it. His voice was low, rough with exhaustion and something darker. "Why didn't you tell them?" Veleth blinked. Anger sparked hot in her chest. Tell them what? That night. He stepped closer, fists clenched at his sides. The feast. Darius. You should have told them you were tricked, that you ran. Her laugh was sharp, brittle. And what about you, Malric? Why didn't you tell them about Solara, about running into her arms? His jaw tightened. I never... You did. You did, Malric. I saw it in their eyes when they spoke your name. They think we betrayed each other. And the worst part? Her throat closed for a beat. The worst part is that I almost believed them. His chest rose, fell. Slowly, he closed the distance until the heat of him pressed against her skin. His silver gaze bored into hers, not with anger now, but with something rawer, desperation. You don't mean that. Veleth's lips trembled. She wanted to deny it, to tell him she trusted him above all else, but the memory of whispers, of Solara's smirk, of Darius's mocking grin swarmed her mind. I don't know what to believe anymore. She whispered. The words cut him deeper than any blade. His breath shuddered, and he turned away as if her gaze alone scorched him. He braced a hand against the stone wall, shoulders rigid, as though the weight of the entire pack pressed upon him. Inside his chest, Malric's thoughts twisted like knives. She doubts me. After everything, after every vow beneath the stars, after every night we swore ourselves clean of temptation until the moon bond, she doubts me. But then he heard his own unspoken fear echo back. And don't I doubt her too? He slammed his fist into the stone, the crack echoing through the cliffs. Veleth flinched. Do you think I don't remember, Veleth? His voice was a snarl now, but beneath it trembled anguish. Do you think I don't remember what we promised? That I would never touch you until the moon joined us? That laughter and stories were enough until the bond sealed us? Do you think I'd throw that away for Solara's schemes? Her eyes burned with unshed tears. She hated him in that moment, not because of his anger, but because she knew his words rang true. And do you think I don't remember you telling me the same thing? That you would wait for me? That no hands but mine would ever touch me until we were bound? And yet someone saw you, Malric. Someone saw you with her, just as they saw me with him. What are we to believe, if not what we saw with our own eyes?
The night grew heavy with silence again. The truth lay between them, broken, jagged, and neither dared pick it up. At last, Malric's shoulders slumped. His voice dropped to something quiet, almost pleading. "I believe you, Vaelith. Even if no one else does, even if the moon herself turns her face from us, I believe you." Her chest ached at his words, her tears finally spilling hot down her cheeks. She wanted to throw herself into his arms and let that belief be enough, but some cruel shard of pride held her back, whispering that trust unspoken could not mend a bond already splintered. So she turned her face away, hiding her tears in the shadows. Then why does it feel like we're already lost? Malric's breath hitched. He reached out, his hand hovering just shy of her arm, trembling with the weight of both desire and hesitation. But at the last moment, he pulled back, because he knew, until they could face the truth of that night, until they could name it without fear, no touch would heal them. The wind howled between them like the wail of a mourning wolf, and though they stood only a breath apart, Vaelith and Malric had never felt further away from each other.
The moon hung blood-red above the Shroudvale Valley, swollen and watchful, as though it had witnessed too much and could no longer keep its silence. The night carried a sharp chill, threading through the campfires and winding into the bones of the gathered wolves. Every pack had returned from the trial of fire, their pride bruised, their unity strained. Yet tonight promised something heavier than ash and doubt. Tonight promised revelation. Vaelith felt it with every beat of her heart. The pack moved around her, restless and murmuring, their voices like the rustle of dry leaves. They had all endured the trial, but none had left unscathed. Whispers had spread, whispers of betrayal, of doubts gnawing at the moon bond that once seemed unbreakable. And yet she forced her chin high. If she faltered now, they would eat her alive. Malric stood beside her, his presence a fortress of steel and smoke. He hadn't spoken to her since their midnight confrontation. They had shared silence, not words, and in that silence her heart had grown both closer to him and further away. Every glance of his silver eyes burned her, every unspoken word carved her hollow. The elders gathered in the circle, their voices carrying authority like thunder rolling through the valley. Elder Kalen, his mane silver as the moon, lifted his staff. "Tonight," he intoned, "we strip away the shadows. Tonight, truth will no longer hide behind smoke and whispers. Tonight, every wolf will know where their loyalty lies." The crowd murmured, a restless growl of anticipation. Vaelith's stomach tightened. She knew this moment was coming, but not so soon. She had thought the trial would buy them time to mend the cracks, to draw close again before the weight of accusation fell upon them. But the moon wasted no time. Neither, it seemed, did fate. A sharp voice cut through the circle. "Then let us begin with them." Solara stepped forward, her figure draped in crimson silk that shimmered against the firelight. The sight of her made Vaelith's breath catch, fury rising unbidden. Solara's beauty had always been her weapon, each step calculated, each glance a snare. But tonight she wielded her tongue like a blade. "The moon bond between Vaelith and Malric has been corrupted," she declared, her words slicing into the silence. "I saw it with my own eyes, Vaelith in the arms of Darius, Malric in mine. Their vows are already broken, they are unworthy." Gasps rippled through the circle, the air turned heavy, expectant. Vaelith's heart hammered, rage surged, but so did fear. If they believe her, everything ends here. Malric's voice came, deep and steady. "Lies." Solara smiled, sharp and cruel. "Then tell them, Malric, tell them you never touched me. Tell them she never let Darius hold her." The crowd leaned closer, hungry for blood. Vaelith felt the weight of every eye, every heartbeat pressing in. Her throat ached with the words she wanted to scream. "No, I never betrayed him. I never broke my vow." But shame wrapped around her, dragging her back to that night, to the trap Darius had set, to the way her body had frozen when arms she despised had closed around her. Malric's jaw clenched, his voice cutting through the rising chaos. "I did not betray her, and she did not betray me." Solara's laugh rang out like shattered glass. "Then prove it. Show us your bond. If it is unbroken, let the moon judge you." The circle erupted, voices clamoring, some shouting in agreement, others hissing suspicion. The elders exchanged wary glances. Vaelith's chest tightened. "Show the bond? Here? Now?"
The moon bond was sacred, not to be paraded before the eyes of wolves hungry for scandal. To call upon it outside of the binding was to strip it bare, to invite the moon's wrath if even the faintest crack lay within. Her eyes darted to Malric. His gaze was fixed forward, his expression unreadable stone, but beneath it she felt the same storm she carried within herself. Elder Kalen raised his staff once more, his voice booming. "The challenge has been made. The moon will decide. Step forward." The circle fell silent, the weight of destiny pressing in. Malric turned to her then, his eyes burning into hers. For a breath, time stopped. She saw the question in his gaze. Do we dare? Do we trust enough to bear ourselves before them all? Her throat closed. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to trust, to leap into the fire with him again. But the memory of their midnight words still cut her raw. Why does it feel like we're already lost? He reached for her hand. His touch was steady, his palm warm against her trembling skin. His voice was a whisper only she could hear. "Valeth, we have to." Her heart quaked. Slowly she nodded. Together they stepped into the circle's center. The wolves parted, silent, watchful. The moonlight poured down like liquid silver, painting their faces in stark relief. Malric lifted his hand, pressing it to Valeth's chest, over her heart. She mirrored the gesture, her hand trembling as it rested over his. "By the light of the moon," he intoned, his voice echoing in the stillness, "we call upon our bond." A hum vibrated through the air, low and thrumming, as though the valley itself held its breath. The moonlight brightened, searing and sharp, wrapping around them in a cocoon of silver fire. Valet's breath caught as the bond stirred, the thread that tied her soul to his, glowing faintly between them. It pulsed once, twice, alive with memory, their first promise beneath the stars, their laughter in the river's shallows, the night they had sworn to wait no matter how much it hurt. The crowd gasped as the thread shimmered, visible even to mortal eyes. But then, a fracture. It rippled through the bond like a crack across glass, small but undeniable. The silver light faltered, flickered. The crowd erupted in cries of outrage and vindication. Valeth's heart lurched. No, it isn't broken. It isn't. Malric's grip tightened on her hand, his jaw clenched in fury and desperation. He forced the words through his teeth. "This is not betrayal. This is poison. Someone has tampered with our bond." The elders shouted for silence, but chaos had already ignited. Some wolves cried for their exile, others called for blood, and Solara's smile gleamed like a blade catching the moonlight. Valeth's voice broke through the uproar, raw and fierce. "Do you not see? This is her doing. She has twisted what is sacred. She wants us broken." Solara only tilted her head, her crimson silk glinting. "The moon does not lie, Valeth. If your bond flickers, it is because your love does too." The words sliced her open. She staggered back, choking on rage and grief. Inside her mind thought stormed. No, this cannot be the truth. I love him. I have always loved him. Even when I doubted, even when I feared, I never stopped. Malric turned on Solara, his voice thunder. "You will answer for this." But the elders raised their staffs, their judgment swift. "Enough. Until the truth is proven, the bond remains under question. Tomorrow we convene the Council of Moons. Until then, you are bound by oath to remain apart." Gasps filled the air. Apart. To be separated even for a night was a crueler punishment than chains. Malric's chest heaved, fury and helplessness burning in his eyes. Valeth reached for him instinctively, but the elders' guards stepped between them. Their gazes locked across the space, silver fire in his, a storm of grief in hers. Neither spoke, but their hearts screamed the same vow. "This is not the end. We will not break." But as the pack dragged them apart, Solara's smile lingered, and the night seemed to whisper otherwise.
The night sky over Shroudville was unlike any in living memory. The moon, veiled in a blood-red shadow, hovered like an ominous eye, watching. An eclipse. Rare, dangerous, holy. Wolves whispered it was a night when spirits stirred restlessly, and the boundary between life and death blurred. For Valeth and Malric, it was more than an omen. It was their last chance. The grove chosen for the ritual lay far beyond the village, deep in the heart of the forest, where the trees themselves leaned together as if conspiring. The moonstone altar, older than the packs, shimmered faintly in the eclipse glow, a jagged spire carved by forgotten hands. At its base, silver bowls filled with herbs smoldered, their smoke curling skyward, carrying prayers and fears alike. Valeth stood in a cloak of midnight blue, her raven-dark hair pulled back, but wild strands already escaping in the rising wind. Her eyes, storm-tossed silver, lingered on Malrek as if afraid to lose sight of him even for a moment. He looked carved from iron and sorrow, his shoulders tense, jaw clenched, amber eyes shadowed yet burning. They were both battle-scarred, both weary. But tonight, they stood as something more than wolves of Shroudvale. They stood as souls chained and seeking redemption. The Alpha had granted no blessing. The Pack had whispered their doubts. But Valeth and Malrek had chosen. This was their path, or their doom. Elder Silwyn, the ritual keeper, laid out the dagger of obsidian. Its edge shimmered faintly, thirsty. She spoke in a voice like cracking embers. The blood oath is forbidden for a reason. It takes what you are and tears it bare. If your bond is true, the moon will weave it stronger than any vow. If false, the shadows of the eclipse will devour you. Her gaze fell heavy on both. There will be no returning once begun. Do you choose this, Valeth Orwyn? Malrek Greystone. I do, Valeth said without hesitation, her voice steady, though her heart pounded like a drum in her chest. I do, Malrek echoed, low and rough, as if forcing it past the walls of his fear. Elder Silva nodded, stepped back, and the smoke thickened around them, carrying sage, iron, and the bitter scent of blood-soaked soil. The dagger was placed in Valeth's hand. She looked at Malrek, searching his face. He gave her a faint nod. She pressed the blade across her palm. The cut stung, sharp and hot, but she did not flinch. Blood welled, rich and crimson. She passed the dagger to Malrek. He mirrored her, slicing his own hand. Their blood dripped into the silver basin at the altar's base, hissing as it touched the herbs. A plume of smoke burst upward, twisting into shapes. Wolves snarling, howling, dissolving. The air grew colder, the eclipse deepened. They joined their cut hands together, flesh against flesh, blood mingling. Instantly, a surge tore through them. Not warmth, but a searing, blinding pain. Valeth gasped, knees buckling as fire raced up her arm into her chest. Malrek grunted, teeth bared, his body straining to stay upright. It was as if the moon itself thrust claws into their souls, dragging secrets to the surface. Whispers filled the growth, not of wolves, not of wind, but of their own thoughts. She was with him. He betrayed me. You left me. You doubted me. They staggered, clutching each other, but the voices were merciless. Valeth screamed, "No, that is not the truth," but the voice of her own doubt hissed louder. Malrek growled, "We were deceived," but guilt pressed like chains. The ritual forced them into the open. No masks, no silence. Only raw wounds. Valeth's voice cracked as she cried out, "Malrek, I doubted you. I believed the whispers even when my heart told me they were lies. I let the poison take root because I was afraid you'd chosen another." Her tears burned hot on her cheeks. Malrek, chest heaving, choked back his own confession. "I hated myself for that night, for drinking, for not seeing through Solara's lies sooner. And when I heard the whispers of you and Darius, oh, Valeth, I let myself believe it because it was easier than forgiving myself. I failed you." The smoke writhed higher, now forming the shapes of Solara and Darius, smirking phantoms circling them. The dagger's edge glimmered in the basin, as if urging them to stop, but they clung tighter. Valeth's voice cracked as she whispered, "But I never touched him, Malrek. I ran. I ran because I knew it wasn't you. Even drunk, even clouded, my soul knew." Malrek's breath broke, his forehead pressing against hers, and I pulled away from her, because laughter, tales, are promises. That's what we are. Not hunger, not betrayal. Always, Valeth, always only you. Their blood dripped still, binding them tighter with every word.
The moon's voice, vast and ancient, rolled through the grove, neither male nor female, but endless. Then bear yourselves fully. Only truth may weave the eternal bond. The eclipse flared crimson. The ground split beneath the altar, showing glimpses of darkness, writhing shadows hungry to devour them. Veleth felt herself being pulled into memory. That night of the feast, Darius's hand brushing hers, his murmur, the way her stomach twisted with wrongness. Shame surged, but Malric's voice cut through. I see you, Veleth. Not the whispers, not the shadows, you. Malric, too, was dragged into his vision. Solara leaning close, her lips nearly on his, the heat of temptation and the cold guilt that followed. His jaw clenched, but Veleth's voice pierced the haze. I forgive you, Malric, because you came back, because you chose me even in the moment you could have fallen. The shadows screamed once more, recoiling, their forms unraveling in the red light. Elder Sylvan's voice rose in the distance, chanting the last words of the blood oath. One final offering, one truth left unspoken, one sacrifice. The dagger lifted from the basin as if drawn by invisible hands. It hovered between them, its obsidian edge glimmering. Malric caught it. He turned the blade toward himself. If the moon demands blood, it will be mine. Veleth's cry was fierce. No, I won't lose you. Not again. Not to this. But Malric's eyes burned with devotion. Our bond broke once because I failed to protect it. If pain is the price to mend it, I'll pay it. He raised the blade, but Veleth seized his wrist, her own bloodied hand covering his. Then we pay together. No more half-burdens, no more silence. If the moon wants truth, let it see this, that we are one. Together they pressed the dagger's edge across both their wrists, deeper than before. Blood poured, mingling, spilling into the basin in a torrent. The smoke erupted into silver fire, engulfing them. Agony ripped through their bodies, but within it, light. They saw flashes of their lives, their first laughter beneath the pines, the promises whispered by rivers, the countless nights of waiting for the moon bond, and beyond those, visions of futures. Battles fought side by side, children with eyes like starlight, their hands always entwined even in gray age. The moon's voice thundered once more. You have bared truth. You have chosen forgiveness. You have sacrificed. Your souls are woven eternal. The fire seared their cuts shut, leaving scars of silver across their wrists. Their blood shimmered on the altar, no longer crimson, but radiant light. The shadows of Solara and Darius screamed one last time, then dissolved forever into ash. When the fire died, Veleth and Malric collapsed into each other's arms, trembling but alive. Their bond pulsed between them, no longer fragile, no longer poisoned, eternal. As the eclipse faded away, the moon returning to silver glow, the grove grew quiet. Elder Sylvan, eyes wide with awe, whispered, It is done. You are bound beyond death itself, the eternal bond. Veleth pressed her forehead to Malric's, tears mingling with laughter. We did it, she whispered. We found our way back. Malric's hand cupped her cheek, rough thumb brushing away her tears. Never again will I doubt. You are my soul, Veleth, my mate, my eternal. Above them, the moonlight poured down, no longer cold, but warm, no longer distant, but forgiven. And for the first time since their love began, they kissed, not stolen, not feared, not poisoned by rumor, but true, full, eternal. The bond sealed in their blood, in their truth, in their unbreakable vow, forever beneath the moon.